Welcome back to our course on foundation engineering. In our last class, we were trying to talk about how to estimate the vertical stresses because of the surface load, and in which we have talked about how to calculate the vertical stress because of an applied concentrated load or because of an applied line load or even because of an applied strip loading condition. We have seen how to calculate your vertical stress. It need not be just below the loaded region. It can be anywhere, even away from the loaded region also at any particular depth. If you want to calculate the amount of vertical stress what is getting developed in the soil, okay, so that we have seen how to calculate based on the expressions what are given by Bosnick. And we have also seen in the case of a concentrated load, according to the Westergaard's theory, how to estimate your vertical stress is also what we have seen. Okay, let's continue our discussion from where we have stopped in our last class. So, in case of an embankment loading means what? So, you have in typical kind of an embankment, the center portion of the embankment is generally referred to that of a uniformly distributed load, whereas your sloping region is not exactly a uniformly distributed load, rather it is a uniformly varying load. Okay, so for that particular loading condition, whatever is represented here, if we want to calculate how the stresses are getting increased in the ground because of such kind of embankment loading condition at any particular depth, if I want to calculate, so this is that expression by which we can go on to calculate the increment in stress in the vertical direction because of your embankment type of loading what is acting on the ground. Okay. So Q naught here indicates that of your uniform pressure, what is expected to be coming from such embankment loading onto the ground, and A and B notations indicates you the length of your uniform portion of the loading and length of your sloping portion of your embankment loading. And alpha 1, alpha 2 angles are very much clearly indicated here in this particular representation. So we can at point A, if I want to calculate how much is that increment in vertical stress, so I can make use of this simple expression and accordingly I can go on to calculate that. Yeah, here you have one example, okay, based on which you can go ahead in calculating how to find out the vertical stress at point A, point B, and point C. Subsequently, understanding what are your corresponding alpha 1, alpha 2 angles that you are supposed to be substituting into your expression. Next, moving on to understand how to calculate your vertical stress in the case of uniformly loaded circular area. Okay, so because of a uniformly circular loading, if you have got which is getting applied on the ground surface, as we said, most type of isolated footings, or it could be a combined footings, if you are coming across with the more regular shapes, what you will be seeing is either a rectangular shaped footing or a square shaped footing, or sometimes if it is an isolated footings, you might also even come across with what is called as your circular shaped footing. So the load in such kind of foundations, or load what is coming from such foundations onto the soil, would be mostly a uniform pressure of that particular cross section. So it could be a uniform pressure what is coming from your circular cross sectional footing, or a uniform pressure what is certainly coming from your rectangular footing, or maybe a square footing. So we are trying to take up the case here. The type of loading what we are looking at is a uniform pressure which is acting in a circular cross sectional area. That pressure distribution, a uniform pressure what we are trying to represent on the ground surface is a uniformly circular loaded area. So here in this particular uniform circular loaded area, we are going to be referring to two cases. One case, due to that uniform circular loaded loading, what we are trying to talk about, at the center, exactly at the center of that loaded region, at any particular depth. I repeat, at any particular depth, but with respect to the center position of that loaded region at any depth, if I want to calculate how much is that increment in stress in the vertical direction, I can make use of this particular expression what is given and from this expression I can simply go on to calculate how much is that stress what is getting developed in the vertical direction at any particular depth z. Okay, but however this expression is valid only when your position with respect to which you are calculating your increment in stress exists at the center of that particular loaded region, but at any particular depth. Let me show you what is that I am referring to. Yeah, this is your representation of the uniform pressure. Okay, in the plan view, if I am looking at this, is indicating me your plan view of your circular loaded region, not the rectangular loaded region. Circular loaded region. It's a uniform pressure what is getting applied over that complete circular cross-sectional area over the ground surface. Now, due to that particular circular loaded region, it's a uniform pressure acting in that form of circular cross-section. So, at the center of the loaded region, this is the point what I am referring to. With respect to the center position of the loaded region, but however, at any particular depth, the axis what I am looking at is the center of your loaded region, but at any particular depth, with respect to the center position of your loaded region, at any particular depth, if I want to calculate how much is your increment in stress in the vertical direction, so I can go on to calculate as per the expression what is that we have seen in our previous slide. But however, always we may not be interested in looking at calculating how much is the increment in stress with respect to that of your center position of your loaded region only. We might be interested in calculating the increment in stress with respect to any point. Maybe some point here, I might be interested in calculating your increment in stress, or maybe some point here, loading might be somewhere, but the point where I want to calculate may not be exactly lying below your loaded region. It can be even away from that loaded region also. So at any point, if I want to calculate where that particular chosen point where I want to calculate my increment in stress may not be lying exactly at the center of the loaded region, or may not be within the area of your loaded region, or maybe within the area of loaded region, but not exactly at the center of that loaded region. So in any of such cases, how do we calculate your so-called increment in stress? So in such particular case, we have another expression by which we can go on to calculate your subsequent increment in stress in the vertical direction, where sigma z is given as q into a dash plus b dash. What does this term a dash and b dash mean? Here, the a dash and b dash in this particular expression are basically said to be the functions of the ratios, ratios z by r and r by r. What does z indicate? Z here indicates depth. Capital R here indicates the radius of your circular loaded area, and small r, whatever we are looking at, so it's nothing but the radial distance of the chosen point from the center of the loaded region. So from the center of that loaded region, at what radial distance that particular chosen point is existing, and at what depth that particular point is existing from the ground surface, that indicates your z value. So depending on your z by r ratio and r by r ratio, your a dash and b dash parameters are going to be depending on, and we have got some standard tables available to calculate this a dash and b dash values depending on the ratio of z by r and r by r. So from that particular table, you can go on to pick out what is your a dash and b dash parameters depending on the z by r ratio and r by r ratio, and accordingly you can come back to substitute into this expression to get how much is that corresponding increment in stress in the soil at any point what you have chosen, which is there at a depth of z meters below the ground surface, and that particular point what you have chosen from the center of the loaded region exists at a radial distance of something small r. Okay, this is what I am referring to. Let's say I want to calculate the increment in stress, that so-called vertical stress sigma z at point B. Now, where is this point B? This point B, from the center of the loaded region, it exists at a radial distance of small r, and in the vertical direction, this point B is existing at a depth of B from the surface of your loaded region. Okay. So once the position of point B is known, at what depth it is there, and from the center of the loaded region, at what radial distance that point B is there, then you can now go on to make use of such standard tables which are available. Okay, let's say for example, how do I pick out here? This particular table refers to that of how to calculate or how to know what is your a dash value that you are supposed to be picking out from the table for the corresponding ratio of z by r and r by r. So if you know what is the radius of that circular loaded area, if you know at what depth you are choosing your point B, and at what radial distance that particular point B is there, if that small r value, z value and capital R values are known, then z by r ratio, r by r ratio I can calculate. And look at here, this vertical direction indicates your z by r, this horizontal direction indicates your r by r ratios. Okay, let's say for z by r is equal to something 0.6 and r by r is equal to something 0.8. Okay, so z by r equal to 0.6 means this line. So corresponding r by r value is 0.8. So for that, what is the value that I am getting of a dash? So a dash is nothing but 0.33676. So I can pick my a dash from this particular table. Likewise, for different other z by r and r by r ratios, I can go on to calculate your a dash parameter, and likewise I can also go on to calculate your b dash parameter for different z by r and r by r ratios. Okay, so that's how we simply calculate your a dash and b dash parameters from the standard table, which you can go on to substitute into the expression what we have seen for calculating your vertical stress that is getting developed at any particular point chosen below your ground surface due to that circular loading what you are, a uniform pressure acting in the form of a circular area. That loading what you are applying, uniform pressure what you are applying, is applied over a circular cross-sectional area. So next, in case if that particular foundation what we are looking at, if it is a rectangular loaded, if the foundation is a rectangular foundation, so load coming from the rectangular foundation onto that ground or onto the soil strata is going to be a rectangular uniform pressure what is going to be acting. So in such particular case of your rectangular loaded area, it's a uniform pressure but applied over a rectangular area. Okay, so in such particular rectangular loaded area, because of such loading condition, how much is going to be your increment in stress if I want to calculate? So I can simply go on to calculate based on this particular expression here, where that increment in the vertical stress sigma z is nothing but it is given as q naught into iz, where iz is what we call it as your influence factor, where this particular iz function what we are representing is going to be depending on the ratio of what is L by Z and B by Z, where here capital L indicates the length of your rectangular loaded region, and capital B indicates width of the rectangular loaded region, and that small z indicates at what depth, I repeat, at what depth you are trying to talk about your vertical stress increment. Okay, and this ratio of L by Z, for simplicity, you will be finding it represented as small n, and B by Z indicated as small m, and you'll be having once again the standard charts from which the ratios of this L by Z and B by Z can be picked out, and you can accordingly calculate what will be the iz value for that corresponding L by Z and B by Z values, and you can go on to substitute into the expression. And if you understand from this particular expression, okay, this is my expression for iz. Look at very simple expression, where m stands for ratio of L by Z. Okay, previous expression there was a mistake. Yeah, even here also B, here B is nothing but n into Z. I'll be correcting later on in my slide. L is nothing but m into Z. Okay, this L by Z ratio is what we represent as m. B by Z ratio is what we represent as small m. Okay, so this influence factor, very simple expression. Okay, so in case from that expression, if you want to calculate, you can still go on to calculate. Otherwise, you have some standard tables available in the books. Okay, so where that standard tables refers to that of your L by Z ratio and B by Z ratio. So for that L by Z and B by Z ratios, you can simply go on to pick out what is your iz value, that's the influence factor value. Okay, for that rectangular loaded region, and you can subsequently go on to substitute into the expression from which you can get your so-called vertical stress at any particular depth what you are looking at. But here let us understand, even in the case of your circular loaded area also, when I was trying to talk about earlier, I said the expression what is given there is going to be useful for us in calculating your so-called vertical stress at any point below the ground surface, but that is with respect to the center of the loaded region only. With respect to the center of the loaded region, at any depth, if you want to calculate how much is your vertical stress that is getting developed, you can go on to make use of that expression to calculate. Later on, at any other point, if I want to calculate, we said you have some standard tables available from your textbooks, which you can pick out the corresponding what we call it as your Z by R ratio and R by R ratio, and accordingly you can substitute into the expression. Now here also in this particular case, the expression what we had based on which you are going to be calculating your vertical stress is going to give you with respect to one of the corner of your rectangular loaded region at any particular depth, but it is with respect to any of the corner of that rectangular loaded region. Then only the expression what we had, which we have talked about earlier, is valid. Sir, I am not interested in looking at finding out how much is the vertical stress with respect to any of the corner of that rectangular loaded region at a depth of 1 meter or 2 meters or 3 meters. That's not I am interested in. Not with respect to the corner of the loaded region, but I want to calculate with respect to any point. Let's say this is my rectangular loaded region, which I am trying to talk about. Hope you are able to see this. Let me take something small. Yeah, this is my rectangular loaded region. Now, the expression what we had for calculating the vertical stress is valid only with respect to these corner points. At any depth, I repeat, at any depth, with respect to these corner points only, the expression what we had is valid for finding out your increment in vertical stress. But however, if I am interested in calculating the increment in vertical stress at a depth of something, let's say 3 meters below that loaded region, but that point what I am choosing is not falling anywhere at the corner point projections. It's somewhere in between the corners. So in such particular case, what should I do? Or at the center of the rectangular loaded region at any depth, if I want to calculate with respect to the center of the rectangular loaded region, at any depth, if I want to calculate how much is my vertical stress, then how should I find it out? Or let's say the rectangular loaded region is this, but the point where I'm interested in calculating my increment in stress is somewhere here, which is away from the loaded area completely. How do I do that? Okay, you can still do for any of the loading conditions. Okay, sorry, for the rectangular loaded region only, but at any point you can still go on to calculate your vertical stress what is getting developed. Okay, so how do we do that? Let us quickly understand. Let's say this is my rectangular loaded area, whatever is indicated here. This indicates me my length of that rectangular loaded area. This indicates me the width of the rectangular loaded area. Now, what we said is the expression what we have from the derivation from Bosnick is valid with respect to any of the corner point only. Any of the corner point means with respect to this point or this point or this point or this point. So, if you are choosing a particular point which is at a depth of, let's say, 2 meters, which is projected from any of the corner points of your rectangular loaded area, then only that expression is valid. But now, where is this particular point existing? Chosen point. Chosen point, what I am trying to look at is somewhere in between these corners, not exactly lying below the corner, rather it is somewhere in between this, in the loaded region only, but somewhere in between the corners, not exactly falling below the corner points. It is somewhere here. So in such particular case, what should I do? I know that with respect to corner of the rectangular loaded portion, I know what is the expression that I can make use of for calculating your vertical stress. But here the point is not falling with respect to the region of your corner of the rectangular loaded area, rather it is somewhere in between. So what should I do is divide that particular area in such a way that the point whatever you are trying to choose at a depth of something so and so has got its projection on that rectangular loaded area. Divide that area in a way that that so-called point what you are referring to in the plan should become one of the corner of all those rectangles into which the total area is divided. I repeat, the total area is divided into some 4 areas here in this picture. But however, what you should ensure is that that particular point what you are looking at, about which you want to calculate the vertical stress corresponding to a depth of something z is equal to so and so. Okay, so that particular point should become the corner of all those rectangles into which the total area is divided. Now, if I look at my section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4, section 1, 2, 3, 4, all are rectangles, or maybe some of them might be square. It doesn't matter. I am assuming it to be rectangle, let's say, because square can also be assumed as a rectangle, but rectangle cannot be assumed as a square. Okay, so I have got 4 rectangles. Rectangle 1 has got the length, let's say L1, width B1. Rectangle 2 has got the length L2, whereas width B1. Dimensions I am talking about. Rectangle 3 has got the length L2, width B2. Rectangle 4 has got the length L1 and width B2. So dimensions of rectangle 1, 2, 3, 4, everything is known. So length and width dimensions of rectangle 1, rectangle 2, rectangle 3, rectangle 4. So for all those 4 rectangles, length, width dimensions are known to me. And what is very much important for me is, for rectangular region of 1, that so-called A dash point what I have looked at is one of the corner. Likewise, for section 2 also A dash point is one of the corner. For section 3, A dash point is one of the corner of that rectangular cross section. And for section 4 is also A dash point is one of the corner. Okay, so what is my vertical stress that is getting developed at that so-called point A, which is there at a depth of z meters below the ground surface in the plan view, if I want to understand? Yeah, so my point where I am trying to calculate my increment in stress is there at a depth of z below the ground surface. Okay, so this is another case, sorry. Yeah, so that particular point is there in the plan. If I am looking at, let's say this is my ground. Okay, so that particular point where I am interested in calculating my vertical stress is at a depth of z meters below the ground surface. In the sectional view, in the plan view, if I am looking at, this is the plan view what is indicated. So the projection of this point onto this loaded area, if I am just trying to understand that so-called point A, which is projected onto that loaded area, in the plan view, if I want to look at, that is indicated as A dash. Okay, so you are dividing the total area of that loading region into sections, individual sections, in a way that your so-called A dash point, which is represented as a projection of your point A on that loaded area. So E is going to be one of the corner of all those individual sections. So in such case, as the dimensions of section 1 is known, section 2 is known, section 3 is known, section 4 is known, then for such dimensions, I can go on to calculate how much is the vertical stress that is getting developed with respect to the position of point A due to section 1 loading, due to section 2 loading, due to section 3 area loading, and due to section 4 area loading. That totally gives me what is your vertical stress that is getting developed at that corresponding chosen point, which is there at a depth of something z below the ground surface. Now, in case if this so-called A dash point, what I am looking at, is at the center, it means if I want to calculate at the center of your rectangular loaded area, how much is going to be my vertical stress that is getting developed at a depth of z meters below the ground surface. So in such case, what I can do, if this is my rectangular loaded area, at the center of this rectangular loaded area, if I want to calculate how much is the increment in stress in the vertical direction. So what I can do, this total area is divided into some n number of sections. It's up to you, but you have to ensure that each section, what you are trying to divide that particular area into, should compulsorily have that particular point about which you want to calculate your vertical stress. So that particular point should be one of the corner of that, each of that rectangular portions. So this is for section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4. If you can understand, all these sections will have same dimensions. Why section 1, 2, 3 and 4 will have same length and width? Because the point where I am calculating my increment in stress is the center of that loaded area at a depth of z meters. So if it is the center of the loaded area, obviously I can write it as the vertical stress that is getting developed at the center of your loaded area is equal to 4 times that of the vertical stress what you are coming across with at that point which is there at a depth of z, because of any of that section 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever you are looking at. Ultimately, I understand what is the dimensions of that section 1, 2 or 3 or 4, and those dimensions can be made use of accordingly to calculate how much is your corresponding vertical stress that is getting developed in the ground where that chosen point exists at a depth of z meters. Now, in the same way, if that particular point what I am looking at is not falling in the region of your loaded portion, it is that particular point what you are looking at where you want to calculate your vertical stress is falling somewhere else. So in such particular case, let's say this is a sectional view of that condition what I am talking about. This is my loading. So for the loading what is acting here, I want to calculate how much is the vertical stress that is getting developed at this point A. Where is this point A? Point A is not lying below your loaded region, rather it is lying somewhere else at a depth of z meters below that particular loaded surface. Now what I know is in the case of a rectangular loaded region, that point about which if I want to calculate the vertical stress, that should become one of the corner of that rectangular cross-sectional loaded area what I am trying to consider. So what I am trying to do here is, now look at this plan view. This yellow color, what is it indicating me? It is indicating me the original area of your loading, the original area in which that uniform pressure is applied. But however, that so-called point A in the plan, if I am looking at, which is represented as A dash, that is not falling anywhere in your loaded area. If it is falling anywhere in the loaded area, we used to divide that rectangle into number of parts. So vertical stress what is getting developed at that chosen point corresponding to a depth of z can be simply represented as stress coming from that section 1 loading area, section 2 loading area, section 3 loading area, section 4 loading area, and so on. But here, the point about which you want to calculate the vertical stress is not falling below your loaded area, it is rather somewhere else. So in such particular case, what I need to once again do is, instead of looking purely only this area, now I am just trying to consider some area in this way, assuming that my area of the loading is this much. Okay, let me erase all the unnecessary lines which are indicated here. Yeah. Instead of committing myself only to this shaded region, I am trying to consider or rather assume the area to be acting on this much rectangular region. Now, why I am doing this is because my so-called point A dash becomes one of the corner of that total area now what I have considered. But is it truly that the original load is acting on that complete area, whatever I have chosen? No. It is acting only in some portion. Now, what I should be doing is the extra area, whatever I have considered, I have to eliminate that area. Now, how should I eliminate that area? In the process of eliminating that area, I have to understand a few more things. I am going to be dividing this particular area in the form of some rectangles again, but whatever the way you want to divide, it's up to you. but ultimately in the process of calculating your stress at that depth of Z meters corresponding to that point A, should be considering only the effect of the original loaded region. And in the process of dividing that or representing the area into sectional regions, each of the rectangle what you are referring to should have your point A dash as one of the corner. That you should have in your mind. Okay, so what I am going to be now doing is I am going to be dividing or representing my total area in the form of 4 simple rectangles. Again, look at that what I am indicating. Rectangle, let's say I am looking at section 1, where my section 1 is nothing but 1, 2, 3 and A dash portion represented between 1, 2, 3 and A dash. Section 2, what I am going to be looking at, is represented, I repeat, section 2, what I am going to be representing is represented between the numbers 7, 9, 3 and A dash. It means this portion. First one was complete. From that, I am subtracting this much portion. Yes, that subtracted portion do also have A dash as one of the corner. Okay, my condition satisfies. And let me look at another section which I am going to consider. Section 3. So what is the remaining portion I have to subtract? The remaining portion that I am required to be subtracting is only this much. This much portion I am required to be subtracting. But if I am going to subtract the region corresponding to the points which is bounded between 1, 5, 8 and 7, is that point A dash is becoming one of the corner? No. Then what I am going to be doing? Section 3, rather considering in between the points 1, 5, 8 and 7, I am going to be considering it like this. 1, 5, 4 and A dash. 1, 5, 4 and A dash means this region is what I am considering. I am supposed to consider only this much region, but now what I have done, I have additionally considered some more portion here also. Now what I should do, that portion of region I have to once again subtract. So what is it bounded between? 7, 8, 4, A dash. Okay, so what is that I am going to be ultimately writing it as my vertical stress that I am going to be talking about at point A, where it is at a depth of Z meters below the ground surface or below the surface where your vertical stress was getting applied, can be calculated as sigma Z due to that section 1 of loading minus sigma Z what you calculate because of your section 2 of the loading, because section 2 of the loading is an additional portion what I have considered in section 1, so that I am subtracting, minus due to the section 3. Section 3 what I have considered as section 3, 1, 5, 4, A dash. But I am supposed to subtract only 1, 5, 8 and 7 that region. But I have additionally considered some more region. So that additional portion what I am subtracting, so that I am adding it. So that ultimately what I am trying to calculate is the vertical stress only because of that given original loaded region. I didn't consider anything extra, any extra area in the process of calculating your vertical stress that is going to be getting developed at your point A. So you have to be very careful. Whatever it is, divide it or add it, but ultimately the vertical stress what you are going to be calculating at any point below the ground surface should be only due to the given original loaded region. That's what you should have in your mind. Anything extra if you have considered, you have to subtract that effect. Anything that you are subtracting, accordingly you have to add. Okay, so that the complete effect is only due to your the original loading condition what is represented on that particular ground. Okay, so that's how because of your uniform rectangular loading which is coming from your structure onto the ground or structure onto the soil strata, So you can go on to calculate your corresponding vertical stress that is getting developed in your soil. And as I mentioned, like you can calculate your influence factor, which is basically a function of your M and N. We know what is M, what is N, which is the ratio of L by Z and B by Z. So for that corresponding M and N parameters, you can go on to pick out what is your influence factor values, what you have in your charts which are represented. Let's say, for example, if your M is 0.4 and N is 0.3, so for that corresponding combination of N is equal to 0.3 and M is equal to 0.4, then the influence factor value, what I am supposed to be picking out from that table is 0.0474. Okay, so that value I'll be taking and accordingly using in my expression to get how much is the corresponding vertical stress because of that loaded area what you are considering. So for different M and N parameters, you can go on to calculate your influence factor values. Next, moving on with the approximate method, we can even calculate that so-called increment in stress at any particular depth. Okay, so that we can go on to still calculate based on what is called as an approximate method. We need not go by the very accurate methods, because whatever the earlier methods that we were trying to talk about for a rectangular loaded region or a circular loaded region, whatever loading that we are referring to, they are all accurate methods which are given by Bosnick. Okay, so even we may not be exactly following those particular approaches, but we have got some approximate approaches also by which we can go on to estimate how much is going to be my corresponding increment in stress in the ground. Okay, so where one of that popular approximate method, what we are going to be most commonly seeing is 2:1 method, 2 vertical to 1 horizontal method. What does this mean? So it means that, let's say the load what is coming from your column is something P. Where is that load getting transferred? It is getting transferred onto your foundation. Let the dimensions of the foundation, the width of the foundation is B, the length of the foundation on which that loading is getting applied is L. Width of the foundation is B, length of the foundation is L. Here, let's say I'm looking at a rectangular foundation, rectangular footing. It could be a square footing, it could be a circular footing, it doesn't matter. Okay. So in case if it is a rectangular footing, how do we calculate that so-called increment in stress at the depth of Z meters below the ground surface? Now, what is the difference between this approximate method which we are talking about when compared to that of the earlier expressions which we have looked at, which are given by Bosnick? In the case of those expressions, the vertical stress what you were calculating was not uniform throughout. At different points which are chosen at a depth of Z, at different points, your so-called vertical stress was not same. But here in this approximate method, we assume that the load what is coming from the foundation onto the soil is uniformly getting distributed. I repeat, it's uniformly getting distributed at a sloping ratio of 2 vertical to 1 horizontal. The slope at which the load is getting distributed into the deeper layers is at a sloping ratio of 2:1. Hope I have discussed this in your soil mechanics course also, while discussing about how to calculate the increment in stresses at the center of the clay layer, while discussing regarding your consolidation settlements in the soil. But however, here also we will be coming across. And when we are taking up your problems on shallow foundation, where we are going to be estimating the settlements in your shallow foundation, there we will be coming across with this approximate method by which we go on to calculate that so-called increment in stress at the center of your clay layer, according to which you are going to be estimating the settlements in the foundation. Okay, now let's quickly come back to this approximate method. What is it talking about? So first, the load coming from the column is P. Now that load, whatever is coming from the column P, is distributed over what area of the foundation, from what area of the foundation onto the soil? Okay, the area of the foundation is B in the width direction, L in the length direction. So area of the foundation is B into L. So from that much area, your P load is uniformly distributed from the foundation onto the soil. So my pressure what is getting distributed from the foundation onto the soil is nothing but it is equal to force is P. It's a uniform pressure distribution what we are assuming over a width B and length L. So this much is the pressure what was getting applied uniformly from the foundation onto the soil. Now as that load or the pressure what is applied, as it moves into the deeper and deeper depths, what is happening? At the ground surface or at the footing level or at the foundation level, that so-called column load P was distributed only over an area of width of the footing and length of the footing, B into L. But as you move into the deeper depths, what is happening? The load what is getting applied as you move into deeper and deeper depths, the area over which the load is getting spread or the load is getting applied is increasing. Yesterday we were trying to talk about something. Let's say this is my ground on which I have some point load acting. Initially, where does that point load get applied? On some particle, individual particle. From that individual particle, load gets distributed onto the other adjacent particles. And from those adjacent particles, the load further gets distributed onto further other adjacent particles. In the process, what is happening as you move into the deeper depths, the number of particles what are available at a particular depth, which are responsible in carrying that particular load coming from the top, is increasing. So in the sense, the area over which that particular load is getting distributed is increasing as you move into the deeper depths. So how that load distribution is happening? So it's approximated to happen at a sloping ratio of 2:1, both in the width direction as well as in the length direction also. In the length direction also, that same sloping distribution of 2:1 is expected to be happening. If we are trying to calculate how much is my vertical stress that is getting developed additionally because of the load coming from the column at a depth of Z meters below the foundation level or at a depth of Z meters below your footing level. So what is going to be my vertical stress there at the depth of Z below the ground surface because of the load coming from your foundation onto the soil. So what is going to be my stress? Stress is nothing but how much load? Load is nothing but column load P. Okay, so at any particular depth, the amount of load is same, but the area of the soil mass or area of the particles which are responsible for carrying that load was increasing as you move into the deeper depths. Okay, so how much is the area of that particular region of the soil which is responsible for carrying the load coming from your column onto the foundation and subsequently from the foundation onto the soil? Okay, so what is the area that is available at a depth of Z meters for a sloping distribution of 2 vertical to 1 horizontal, 2 vertical to 1 horizontal. So with that sloping distribution, what is going to be my width of that loading area and length of that loading area? Okay, width of the loading area per Z meters in the vertical direction. What is going to be the horizontal distribution here? Okay, so for this sloping distribution, if I am looking at, so this dimension is B. Okay, so what is going to be this dimension? For every Z meters variation in the vertical direction, the corresponding horizontal spread for that slope of 2:1, this is going to be Z by 2, and in the same way on the other side also, this variation is going to be Z by 2. So total, how much is it coming out to be? B plus Z by 2 plus Z by 2. So that's nothing but B by Z in the width direction. That much is the width available at a depth of Z meters below the ground surface to carry the load. And in the length direction also with that same slope distribution. So the length what is available in the other direction is going to be B plus Z. Okay. So width available is B plus Z and length available is L plus Z for that load coming from the column to be distributed. The area available for that load coming from the column to be distributed, the dimensions of that area are nothing but B by Z and B plus Z and L plus Z. So on that much area, your P force is going to be getting distributed. So it means that your sigma Z, what we are going to be talking about, is nothing but it is equal to force is P. Area over which that force P is getting distributed is B plus Z is the width dimension, L plus Z is your length dimension. If you want, you can understand the same expression what is given here, but it is indicated in terms of the pressure what was coming from the foundation onto the soil. How did we write down this QR Q0? QR Q0 is what we have represented as, if you can recall, P by L into B. So if I substitute here, LB gets cancelled. What I'll have is P by B plus Z into L plus Z. That's what I have simply represented here in this particular expression. Okay. So at any particular depth, based on this approximate method, where the slope at which the load is being distributed is assumed to be 2:1. So in such particular case, your increment in stress in the vertical direction can be simply calculated as P by the area over which that load is getting distributed. What is the area available? In the width direction, it is B plus Z dimension. In the length direction, it is L plus Z dimension. This is what clearly shows you a picture of, in the width direction, how the load is being distributed, as well as in the length direction, how the load distribution is being represented. So here the foundation, if it is rectangular foundation, then we understood, okay. In case if it is a square foundation, so in the case of square foundation, L and B are same. So what happens in the numerator? It's nothing but Q into L into B becomes automatically B square divided by B plus Z into L plus Z. L plus Z is also nothing but B plus Z. So it becomes B plus Z whole square. Okay. So this is for the case of your rectangular one. Okay. This is not L plus X, rather it is L plus Z. Now in the case of a strip footing means you have a limited width, but the length is extended to a longer distance. So in such case, we consider for every 1 meter in the length direction. I repeat, for every 1 meter in the length direction. So subsequent load distribution is represented to be distributed only in the width direction, not in the length direction, because as the length is extended to a very long distance, so your load distribution is considered with respect to only the width for every 1 meter in the length direction. So in such particular case, your vertical stress, what we can go on to calculate is by this particular expression. In the case of a circular one, in the case of circular footing, the width of the footing or length of the footing is indicated in terms of the diameter of the footing. So automatically Q into L into B by B plus Z into L plus Z, which we have derived previously. So L is replaced by D, B is replaced by D. So automatically what I'll be getting is Q into D square by D plus Z whole square. Okay. So that's what we have got here in this expression represented. So it doesn't matter whether it is a square footing, whether it is a circular footing, whether it is a rectangular footing, whether it is a strip footing. So still we are able to find out how much is your vertical stress that is getting developed in the soil at a depth of Z meters from that uniform pressure or from that particular load what is coming from your column onto the foundation. Okay. And next and the last, let's quickly understand another method by which we can go on to find out how much is your vertical stress that is getting developed in your ground or in the soil strata. Okay. So here Newmark's method is nothing but it's actually a graphical approach by which one can find out what is the amount of vertical stress that is getting developed in the soil. But the advantage with this particular Newmark's chart is it's not for a particular shape of the loaded region. It need not be a rectangular loaded area or a square loaded area, or it need not be a circular loaded area. Okay, it's a uniform pressure, but need not be of a shape rectangle or a square or a circle or a triangle, something of a known cross section. It need not be of a known cross section. For any irregular cross sectional loading area also, this Newmark method is going to be helping you in finding out how much is going to be your vertical stress that is getting developed in the soil. So it means that stresses due to the foundation loads of any arbitrary shape. If my foundation shape is of irregular, if this is my foundation shape, it need not be always rectangle like this. It need not be always square like a circle like this. It need not be always square like this. It can be irregular shape also, from which the load is coming from that so-called foundation onto the soil. In such particular case, the load is still uniform pressure, but however, the area through which that particular load is coming onto the soil is an irregular area. So in such particular case, you can make use of this Newmark's method or Newmark's chart rather, based on which you can go on to find out your vertical stress. Okay. So Newmark's chart provides a graphical method for calculating the stress increase due to a uniformly loaded region of arbitrary shape resting on a deep homogeneous isotropic elastic region. Okay. Soil in which that particular load is getting applied is a uniform soil, which is said to be homogeneous, isotropic, and within the elastic limit, we are trying to estimate that increment in stress in the ground. So here in this particular Newmark's chart, in this Newmark's method, nowadays people are not following this particular what is called as your graphical approach. That's your Newmark's method for calculating your vertical stress. But however, just to give you an idea like how this vertical stress can be calculated based on this Newmark's method, I'm just trying to take up this, but not very in detail. I'm just trying to give you an idea or a glimpse on how this Newmark's method or Newmark's charts can be used for subsequently calculating the vertical stress. So ultimately, when you look at a standard chart, what is given by Newmark, I repeat, you are whenever you look at as I said, it's a graphical approach. So what we have here is a standard chart what is given by Newmark, where that standard chart what we are going to be looking at, I'll show you that standard chart, where that standard chart, what does it contain means, it contains the concentric circles which are drawn to a particular scale. I repeat, you are going to have what information that chart would contain means, it is going to have some concentric circles which are drawn to a particular scale, where that concentric circles are divided into n number of elements there. Okay, or n number of area parts into n number of elemental areas. Okay, so which is what in turn used, those elemental areas is in turn what is used in ultimately understanding how much is going to be your corresponding vertical stress that you are coming across in your soil at any particular depth. Okay, so here in this Newmark chart, what we are going to be looking at is something what is called as an influence factor or an influence value, which is indicated here. Look at this influence value is something, a standard value corresponding to each of the element what is represented in that particular chart. If you look at this particular chart, this is my Newmark chart what we are trying to talk about. Now, what is the influence value of that corresponding Newmark chart what you are using? That's something what you should be knowing. Without that, you cannot go on to calculate how much is your vertical stress that is getting developed in the soil. Sigma Z value you cannot calculate. Okay, so each standard Newmark chart what we have will have some particular influence value. Sir, how much is going to be the influence value of that particular Newmark chart what I am looking at? How do I know? Okay, so what how do we understand the influence value of that particular Newmark chart means? This so-called chart what we are looking at is divided into how many number of elements. If I know that, then I understand what is called as the influence value of that particular chart. Influence value is nothing but it's the least value of each of that element what you are looking at. So the total chart what we are looking at, the area represented in the total chart is divided into how many number of elements. That's what I should be knowing. Okay, so most common Newmark chart what you will be looking at will have an influence value of 0.005. Sir, how did we get this influence value 0.005? Influence value I is nothing but it is given as each one element or your one element in this complete chart what you are looking at. Or this complete chart is divided into how many number of elements? I am referring to one element in the numerator out of how many number of elements existing in this particular chart. You are going to be having 200 number of elements which are indicated in this particular chart. If you want, you can just understand how many. First, let's start understanding how many concentric circles we have. and each concentric circle is divided into how many number of elements. If you know that, then we'll be able to know how many number of elements that that particular Newmark chart is containing. And once we know the number of elements totally that particular Newmark chart is containing, then what is the influence value of each of the element means. So I is equal to 1 by those total number of elements which are existing in that particular Newmark chart. Okay, so here I have got 10 concentric circles starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the border indicates here 10th one. The border what we are representing is indicating you the 10th concentric circle. And if you understand, each concentric circle is divided into how many number of elements. So let me start from here. Element 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, sorry, here it should be further extended. This radial line is stopped in between. So this is 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So each concentric circle is divided into 20 number of elements. Likewise, I have 10 concentric circles. So total number of elements, if I have patience, I can go on to count. I'll be getting 200 elements. It means the influence factor value of this particular given standard chart is 1 in 200. Okay, influence value of each element is nothing but 1 in 200. Okay, so now here let us understand how much is going to be my vertical stress that I am going to be talking about for some particular shape of the foundation from which the load is getting distributed onto the soil. So how do we calculate? Okay, so let me quickly give you an idea by roughly explaining it here. If you are interested, please refer to any of the standard textbook, or in YouTube also you have got many number of lectures which are going to give you a clear picture of how to calculate this so-called vertical stress based on your Newmark chart. Let's say this is the ground. On this particular ground, I have got some rectangular shaped footing. I said it could be any irregular shape, but I'm just, for my easiness, I'm choosing some rectangular shaped footing. Let's say the dimension of this rectangular shaped footing is 3 meters in the width direction and 5 meters in the length direction. And the depth at which I want to calculate the increment in stress, that so-called vertical stress which I want to calculate, that depth at which it is existing is, let's say, some 4 meters below the footing position or below the foundation position. Okay, so let's say the point where I want to calculate my vertical stress is somewhere here. In the plan view, if I just want to extend this point, it's not falling at the center of the loaded region, but in the plan, if I am looking at, okay, this was my rectangular cross section of the footing, 3 meters, 5 meters. The point, let's say it was falling somewhere here. Okay, so this is my point A, and in the plan view, when I'm projecting it to represent, I'm indicating it as A dash. Okay, now how this Newmark chart is going to be helping me in estimating how much is my corresponding vertical stress. So here we have first understood what is the influence value of that particular Newmark chart which I am going to be using for estimating the vertical stress. Okay, as we said, the most common Newmark chart generally contains 200 elements, or the total area is divided into 200 number of elemental areas. What is, you have got certain assumptions here in this Newmark chart. The stress carried by each of the element, though the shape of each of the element is varying, though the area of each of the element is varying. Some elements has got small area, some elements towards the corner has got more area. But however, the stress carried by each of the element existing in that represented chart is uniform. That's an assumption. You have to carefully follow that. Okay, so the influence value of most common used Newmark chart is 1 in 200, which we write it as 0.00. Okay, 0, 1, 2, Yeah, 0.005. This is your influence value of that Newmark chart which I am using, let's say. Now, the scale, because the area of your footing has to be transformed onto some particular size, because as it is a graphical representation, first the size of the footing what I have in the field has to be traced onto a tracing paper. The size of the footing what I have in my field of dimension 3 meter by 5 meter, so that particular size of the footing has to be transformed onto a tracing paper, or we also call it as a butter paper. Now what we are going to be doing is we transform the size of that original foundation onto the tracing paper, and that tracing paper we get it and put it exactly over your Newmark chart. I repeat, we get the tracing paper and place the tracing paper exactly over your Newmark chart, and we count how many number of elements are being covered with respect to that rectangular portion of the area what I have represented on the tracing paper. I hope you have understood what I said. Okay. So the area, whatever is mapped corresponding to the tracing paper, how many number of elements are getting covered in your pneumatic chart. If this is, sorry, Newmark chart, if this is my Newmark chart. Now, where should I place this particular tracing paper? Should I place the tracing paper corner of this tracing paper at the center of your concentric circles, or this corner of the tracing paper? Which position of the tracing paper I should be placing at the center of the concentric circles? Position with respect to where you want to calculate your vertical stress. I said with respect to A dash point in the plan, if I am looking at, that is my point corresponding to a depth of 4 meters. Below that point, at a depth of 4 meters, I want to calculate my vertical stress. So what should I do is, first convert the original dimension of the foundation into an appropriate scale what is adopted in your pneumatic chart. Let's say the 1 centimeter in the pneumatic chart is indicating you some 5 meters. Then accordingly convert the original dimension of your foundation. So what will be the width of the foundation that I should be representing on your pneumatic chart? Okay, so my width of the foundation that I have to be accordingly converting is 3 centimeter. Sorry, not 3 centimeter. 1 centimeter is representing 5 meters, in the sense your width has to be accordingly represented as 0.6 centimeter, and length has to be accordingly represented as 1 centimeter. So a width of 0.6 centimeter dimension has to be drawn to a proper scale on your tracing paper, and length of 1 centimeter accordingly you have to be indicating, and you have to consider that. And draw that dimension, overlap that tracing paper on your pneumatic chart, and count how many with this point of A dash overlapping with the center of your concentric circles. I am looking at your pneumatic chart now, where that pneumatic chart has got some radial lines like this. See, what I am drawing is something very arbitrary. It doesn't even look like a proper pneumatic chart. Now, what I should be understanding is this total area is covered between how many number of those elements traced in your pneumatic chart. Okay, so that I have to be properly counting. Say somewhere if the complete element is not covered, only a portion of the element is getting covered. Some element is covering only this much portion. Only this much portion of that area, whereas the original element was of this much portion. So what I approximately understand is not the complete one element is being covered, rather maybe 0.7 times that of the element, or 0.3 times that of the element. Roughly I'll be able to understand, and accordingly I'll be interpreting the total number of elements which are being covered when this tracing paper is overlapped on your pneumatic chart. I'll count those many number of elements being covered by that particular represented area, and once that particular number of elements are counted, then we can easily go on to calculate what is your corresponding vertical stress. Okay, so your vertical stress is nothing but the uniform pressure what was getting transferred into your influence factor value. I repeat, the corresponding influence factor value into the number of elements what are being covered when you are trying to overlap your tracing paper with respect to that of your standard pneumatic chart. Okay, so with that you'll be able to calculate how much is going to be your corresponding vertical stress that is getting developed in the soil. Okay. But however, this particular pneumatic chart is not very much widely being followed nowadays for estimating your vertical stress, as this being more approximate method or as a graphical approach, where you are truly depending on counting the number of elements traced by your the size of the foundation what you have transformed on to represent on your tracing paper. So in the process of counting the number of elements, the elements what you are trying to count are always not full in number. Let's say, for example, my tracing paper was covering this much region like this. So I'll be counting all those elements which are full in number, no problem. But the elements which fall somewhere here in this corner, if you look at this area, is not completely covering one element. Rather, it is covering some portion of the element only. So I have to approximate it. I cannot count it as one complete element, maybe a 0.6 times that of the complete element. That is an approximation what I am doing it. So that's the reason why we say that so-called vertical stress what you are estimating based on this is relatively not very accurate. Okay, so that's how people are not widely using nowadays this particular pneumatic chart, but very much in olden days people were used to use this particular pneumatic charts, based on which you can go on to happily calculate how much is your vertical stress that is getting developed in the soil which is there at any depth below the ground surface. So in the process of converting the dimension of the foundation onto the tracing paper, you have got two things which are very important. Your depth of the foundation has to be accordingly transformed to a suitable scale, and that according to that particular scale in terms of the depth taken into consideration. This scale what is indicated on your pneumatic chart AB is subsequently represented to have the conversion of your depth dimension. Okay, so depth dimension has to be accordingly converted based on that scale represented on your pneumatic chart, and based on that conversion your original dimension of the foundation has to be redrawn on a tracing paper to overlap onto your pneumatic chart, and accordingly count how many number of elements are being covered by that tracing paper when represented on the pneumatic chart, and accordingly make use of this particular expression to calculate your vertical stress. If you want in detail, like how exactly you are going to be calculating your vertical stress, so you can refer to any of the standard book, or maybe the video lectures which are very much commonly available in YouTube by different people. Okay, so which gives a clear picture of how this pneumatic method is going to be helpful for us in estimating the vertical stresses that are getting developed in the ground. Okay, so as this is a basic fundamental course, we are not going to be going into much details of how the other aspects of stresses are being calculated and so on. Okay, so to that extent, what is basically required, we are moving ahead with that, and we'll continue our next topic. With this, we conclude that we have completed our second unit. On a whole, in our second unit, what all we have covered is we have talked about our soil exploration and geotechnical investigation, and then we have subsequently understood how to calculate your vertical stresses that are getting developed in the soil only due to your surface load. Earlier in our previous course, already we have seen how to calculate that vertical stress because of your self weight of the soil already. So now due to the surface load, we have calculated the vertical stress. So in combination of your surface load and the self weight of the soil, if I need to calculate the vertical stress, so it's a combination of the vertical stress due to the self weight plus the vertical stress due to your surface load gives me the total vertical stress at any point below your ground surface. Okay, so with this, we'll stop our discussion for today, and in our next class, we'll get started with our third unit, where we'll start with the introduction of your foundation, introduction to different types of foundations, and how do we classify the foundation, how to say which foundation is suitable in what soil condition and so on. We'll start discussing that.